I wasn't invited to my own brother's wedding. Not because I caused drama, not because I live somewhere remote and unreachable, but because I'm a source of tension, according to my mom. A polite way of saying I've been cut out of the family without an official announcement. My brother's text came one afternoon like any other, but when I read it, I felt my heart drop to the floor. My name is Natalie. I'm 32 years old, a regular older sister, nothing special except for always being the one to clean up the messes my family left behind. My teenage years were all about patching up the holes my brother Levi, now 28, left every time he stumbled. Whether it was a breakup, losing a job, or just being bored and lost, Levi always called me, and I always showed up. And now I'm left out of his wedding. Levi's message was short and fake. "Hey, just letting you know the guest list is finalized. We had to cut a lot. Hope you understand. Love you." Understand? I'm not a distant cousin no one's seen in 10 years. I'm not some old classmate he kept around out of politeness. I'm his sister, the one who drove across state lines to bring him home after he was dumped, the one who covered his rent when his bank account was empty, the one who stayed up at night listening to him cry about work stress. And now I'm being tossed aside like I'm a stranger. I stared at my screen. At first I thought there had to be a mistake, that this was some dumb joke. But then when I called Mom, everything became painfully clear. She picked up after 2 rings, her voice unusually cheerful. "Natalie, sweetheart, what's going on?" I didn't beat around the bush. "I just got a message from Levi. He said the guest list is finalized and I'm not on it. What's going on?" There was a suspicious pause, then Mom sighed. That kind of sigh that always made me feel like a kid overreacting. "Oh, Natalie, don't make a big deal out of it. It's just a wedding." "It's just a wedding?" I felt my chest tighten. "I'm his sister, Mom. How could I not be invited?" She clicked her tongue. That sound that always drove me crazy. "It's nothing personal, sweetheart. Levi and Sophia have to save money. Everything's so expensive now. Everyone has to compromise a little." I tried to stay calm. "Mom, I just saw Levi's post on Instagram. He booked a fancy banquet hall in Chicago, over 120 guests. Even his high school friends are invited. Am I worth less than them?" Her voice suddenly turned firm. "You're overreacting, Natalie. Don't let this little thing hurt you." Hurt myself? No, Mom got it wrong. This wasn't the first time I'd been treated like my presence was optional. I was used to being overlooked, but this time, I wasn't staying quiet. I didn't argue, I didn't beg to be reinvited. I hung up, and for the first time in my life, I decided, if they don't need me, I don't need them. I opened my laptop and pulled up a travel site. If Levi thought I'd just sit at home moping on his wedding day, he was dead wrong. I was going far, really far. I was going to take the vacation of a lifetime, and for the first time in years, I was going to put myself first. I used to think if I was just good enough, patient enough, there would come a day I'd be appreciated. But the more I think back, the more I realize I was just a shadow. Always there when needed, always gone when things got better. No one ever asked if I was tired. No one ever stopped to say thank you. Levi has always been emotional, impulsive, and blindly trusting in relationships. I still remember the night he was 22, crying like crazy on the side of the road after some girl he'd dated for 3 months dumped him cold. At the time, I was on a night shift at the hospital, 14 straight hours in the ER, but when I got his call at 1:00 a.m., I dropped everything and drove straight from Portland to Seattle. He was curled up on the curb, eyes red, clutching a half-empty bottle of cheap whiskey. I wrapped him in my jacket and took him back to my tiny apartment where I was still sharing a room with a roommate. A few months later, he lost his job at a tech startup. Chronic lateness. He called me in a panic, crying that he didn't have enough to pay rent. I didn't have much, but I wired him $900, the money I'd saved for next semester's tuition. I had to postpone my lab course, but I didn't regret it because back then, I thought that's what a sister is supposed to do. Then came Amber, the pretty, brainless marketing girl Mom adored like a Hallmark movie character. "She really loves Levi," she'd say, even though it was obvious she was just using his credit card. Levi was blinded, and I was the bad guy for warning him. And when Amber cleaned out his apartment and vanished without a trace, who drove 3 hours to Chicago to pick her brother up off the living room floor? And what did Mom say? "Natalie, don't be hard on him. Levi's sensitive. You're his sister. You should understand." Right. It was always me who had to understand. Levi never had to understand anyone. Every time he messed up, Mom found a way to justify it. "Levi's still young. Levi's not as strong as you. Levi just needs a little more time." 10 years passed, and that little more time turned me into an unconditional lifeline. He called me when he lost his phone, when he needed to book a doctor's appointment, even just to ask which tie to wear for an interview. I was always there, always listening. But when I spent a week in the hospital with appendicitis, who came to visit? No one. Even my mom, who poured love into Levi like an overflowing glass, only called me once and ended the call with, "I thought you were used to pain by now, Natalie." Something inside me began to rot from that moment. I started to pull back, stopped talking, stopped sharing, but I kept helping, kept carrying the load because I thought it was the right thing to do. I thought if I just kept loving them, they'd see it. But the truth is, love is never enough when someone decides to ignore it from the beginning. And now, they weren't just ignoring it, they cut me out completely, as if I were some unnecessary side character in their life story. They didn't invite me, didn't mention me, and when I reacted, my mom had the nerve to call it overreacting. And he could invite 120 people, hire a live band, throw an outdoor garden wedding, but there was no room for me, the invisible support beam during the years he nearly lost everything. I sat there in front of my laptop as the afternoon breeze slipped through the window. A cup of cold coffee sat on the table next to my phone with Levi's message still open, short, still flat, still emotionless. "Hope you understand." I typed out a reply, then deleted it. Typed again, deleted again. Finally, I turned off my phone. I understood. And I wasn't going to forgive this time. I didn't want to argue anymore. I didn't want another text from Mom telling me to be understanding of Levi, or a fake sweet call from my brother trying to smooth things over. They chose to erase me from the biggest day of our family, so I would erase them from the priority list of my life. I opened my laptop. My fingers flew across the keyboard, clicking like I was unleashing every ounce of anger within. 40 minutes later, I had booked my dream vacation, a week at a 5-star resort in St. Lucia. An ocean view suite with spa services, infinity pool, and private balcony breakfast. It wasn't cheap, but I was done living frugally to help everyone else. This time I was spending money for me, not to support the family, not to lend my brother a few $100. This was my vacation to do something I'd never allowed myself before. Enjoy without asking anyone's permission. After booking, I stood up and walked out to the balcony. The late summer wind in Portland brushed my face, but instead of feeling cool, it felt cold and empty. This was no longer a place I wanted to stay, not during the week my family would throw a big wedding and pretend I never existed. I pulled out my phone and opened Instagram. In my gallery, I had a photo from a business trip to Vancouver, me sitting in a cafe, espresso in hand, a faint smile just relaxed enough to not look fake. I adjusted the colors, added a warm filter, then wrote the caption. They say being cut from the guest list is awful, but hey, I think I'll survive. I hit post. 10 minutes later, the notifications started pouring in. My cousin Tyler sent a laughing emoji. An old friend commented, "Don't forget to take me next time." And the most surprising, Aunt Caroline, the only relative who ever stood up for me, commented, "Proud of you for choosing your own happiness." I leaned back against the wall and quietly read every reply. No word from Mom, no emoji from Levi. Perfect. The next morning, I rolled my suitcase to the airport. No announcement, no itinerary left behind. I boarded that plane like I was stepping out of the role I'd been playing for over a decade. The role of the enduring sister, the mature child who has to sacrifice, the woman who was never allowed to get angry. First class. Champagne poured to the brim, A travel magazine lay on the armrest with a bold headline, "Live fully for once." I chuckled softly. During the entire flight, my phone stayed on silent. When we landed at Huanora Airport, a sleek black SUV was already waiting. The driver, a local man with a kind smile, had chilled towels ready. I didn't have to lift a finger. Everything was perfectly arranged because I booked the highest-end package. As we drove along the coastline, I rolled the window down. The ocean breeze carried scents of salt and jasmine. In the distance, red-roofed houses dotted the hills, and the water sparkled turquoise. I'd never seen the world look so beautiful. When I stepped into the resort lobby, it felt like walking into a painting. High ceilings, palm trees growing indoors, glossy dark wood at the front desk, and staff greeting me with an icy tropical cocktail. I handed over my passport. The receptionist smiled. "Welcome back, Ms. Natalie." I laughed. "This is my first time here. Why welcome back?" She winked. "Because we hope you'll want to return." I didn't respond, but in my head, I knew, yeah, maybe I will come back. Not for them, for me. I entered the room, dropped onto the bed, opened my phone, not to read messages, but to post another photo. The view from the balcony, endless blue ocean, golden sunlight, a cocktail glass catching the light. This time the caption was shorter. One door closes, another opens, straight to the sea. Then I locked my phone and lay still, letting the silence settle. They chose to cut me out of their lives. And me? I chose to live a life where I no longer needed anyone's approval. The sound of waves outside blended with the ocean breeze, creating a softness so soothing I almost forgot I once belonged to a family that never let me breathe. Levi has always been the golden child. I remember when he was in college and called me at 3 a.m. because he'd failed an important exam. I was in the middle of my residency, working 80-hour weeks, but I stayed on the phone for 2 hours helping him draft an email to his professor begging for a retake. I even wrote most of it for him while he sobbed about how unfair the test had been. When he got the retake and passed, who got the credit? Levi really pulled through, Mom told everyone at Sunday dinner. He's so resilient. Not a word about my help. Then there was the time he totaled his car, driving drunk, though he swore to Mom he was sober. I was the one who took out a personal loan to help him get a new vehicle because he needed it for work. $3,000 I'm still paying off, and he's never once offered to help with the payments. "Natalie's good with money," Mom would say. "Levi's still figuring things out." At 28, he's been figuring things out his entire adult life. I remember his 25th birthday. I planned a surprise party, invited all his friends, decorated his apartment while he was at work. I spent weeks organizing it. Spent nearly $500 I couldn't really afford. When the night came, he showed up 3 hours late, already drunk from pre-gaming with colleagues. He barely acknowledged the effort, and the next day, Mom called to say, "Levi mentioned you seemed a bit controlling with his party. You know he likes to go with the flow." Go with the flow. That's what they call it when he disrupts everyone else's plans. Last Christmas, he promised to visit me in Portland. I cleaned my apartment, bought special groceries, even took time off work. 2 hours before his flight, he texted, "Change of plans, staying with Sophia's family instead. They have a bigger place. Rain check?" I spent Christmas alone, watching movies with a bottle of wine, telling myself it didn't matter. Mom called the next day, not to check on me, but to gush about how mature Levi was becoming, spending time with his future in-laws. When Sophia came into the picture, I was genuinely happy for him. She seemed stable, organized, exactly what he needed. I welcomed her with open arms, invited them both to dinner whenever they were in town. I even helped Levi pick out the engagement ring, spending an entire Saturday going from jeweler to jeweler until we found the perfect one. And now, I'm not good enough to attend their wedding. The worst part? I know exactly what happened. Levi probably never wanted to exclude me, but Sophia's family is wealthy, connected. They probably had a limit on guests, and when push came to shove, I was expendable. And Mom, always eager to please, probably agreed. Natalie will understand. She always does. But this time, understanding doesn't mean accepting. This time, understanding means recognizing my worth and refusing to be treated as an afterthought. I'm stretched out on a lounger, piña colada in hand, soft jazz playing from the Bluetooth speaker by the pool, wrapped in a crisp white robe ironed at every seam by the resort staff, and in front of me, an endless horizon, clear and cloudless. For once, I don't have to be anyone's savior. For once, I am my own priority. The morning after I booked my trip to St. Lucia, I woke up feeling lighter than I had in years. My phone showed 3 missed calls from Mom and a text from Levi that simply read, "Can we talk?" I deleted both without responding. Instead, I opened my laptop and began meticulously planning every detail of my vacation. This wasn't going to be just any getaway. This was going to be the reset button I'd been needing for years. I upgraded my flight to first class, added premium spa packages, and even scheduled a private sunset sailing tour. The total came to nearly $6,000, money I'd been saving for a down payment on a condo. But right now, this felt more important than real estate. If they want to pretend I don't exist for their special day, I muttered to myself, then I'll make sure I'm having the time of my life while they do it. I took a photo of my confirmation email and posted it on Instagram with the caption, "Sometimes the universe closes a door so you can find your way to paradise instead. Hashtag self-care. #est Lucia. No regrets." Within minutes, the likes started pouring in, along with comments from friends who had no idea what was happening but were excited for me nonetheless. My cousin Ellie called almost immediately. "Nat, what's going on? You're going to St. Lucia? What about Levi's wedding?" I took a deep breath. "I wasn't invited." The silence on the other end was deafening before Ellie exploded. "What do you mean you weren't invited? You're his sister." "Apparently that doesn't matter anymore," I said, surprised by how calm I sounded. "Mom says they had to cut the list, and I didn't make the cut." "That's bullshit," Ellie said bluntly. "Aunt Karen called me yesterday gushing about how they've invited over 100 people. They even invited Uncle Dave's new girlfriend, who no one's even met yet." I laughed, but it came out hollow. "Well, I guess a stranger ranks higher than me on their priority list." "Do you want me to talk to them? This is ridiculous." "No," I said firmly. "I'm done fighting for a place at their table. I've booked myself a luxury vacation, and for once, I'm going to put myself first." After hanging up with Ellie, I continued planning. I ordered new swimsuits, sundresses, and even splurged on designer sunglasses. Each purchase felt like another brick in the wall I was building between my old life, where I was everyone's safety net, and my new one, where I existed solely for myself. The day before my departure, I posted another photo. My packed suitcase, passport, and a guidebook to St. Lucia laid out on my bed. T-minus 24 hours until paradise. Sorry, not sorry. Me time. This time, my phone actually rang. Mom. I let it go to voicemail. Her message was exactly what I expected. "Natalie, what is this vacation nonsense? Levi's very hurt that you're being so dramatic about the wedding. You know how tight their budget is. Call me back so we can discuss this like adults." I deleted the message and blocked her number. Then I blocked Levi's too. For the next week, I didn't want a single reminder of the family that had decided I wasn't worth including. The next morning, as my plane took off, I felt a strange mixture of liberation and grief. Part of me was mourning the family I thought I had, the one where I mattered enough to be included in important moments. But a stronger part was celebrating my freedom from the exhausting cycle of giving without receiving. When I landed in St. Lucia, the humidity hit me like a warm embrace. Palm trees swayed against a backdrop of mountains so green they looked almost unreal. My driver, a cheerful local named Marcus, pointed out landmarks as we wound our way to the resort. "First time in St. Lucia?" he asked, catching my wide-eyed expression in the rearview mirror. "First time anywhere just for me," I replied. He nodded knowingly. "Then you've come to the right place. We say this island heals what needs healing." The resort exceeded every expectation. My room overlooked the Caribbean Sea, with floor-to-ceiling windows that opened onto a private balcony. A bottle of champagne waited in an ice bucket with a note. "Welcome to your escape." I popped the cork, poured a glass, and stepped onto the balcony. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. In the distance, the silhouette of mountains created a perfect backdrop to the endless ocean. For the first time in my adult life, I had nowhere to be, no one to help, no crisis to solve. Just me, this view, and a week of absolute freedom. I raised my glass to the horizon. "To being excluded," I toasted aloud. "Best thing that ever happened to me." The first morning in St. Lucia, I woke to sunlight streaming through sheer curtains and the gentle sound of waves breaking on the shore. For a moment, I forgot where I was. My body still expecting to wake up to the gray Portland skies and the inevitable ping of my phone with some new crisis from Levi or a guilt trip from Mom. Instead, I stretched luxuriously across the king-sized bed, my limbs extending into cool, crisp sheets that smelled faintly of lavender. No alarms, no schedules, no one waiting for me to solve their problems. I padded to the balcony and flung open the doors. The view nearly knocked the breath from my lungs. Turquoise water stretching to the horizon, framed by lush green mountains that seemed to rise directly from the sea. Below, resort staff were already setting up lounge chairs by the infinity pool, their movements unhurried and deliberate. A gentle knock at my door announced room service. Breakfast on my private balcony had been part of my extravagant package. The server, a woman named Mariella with a warm smile, arranged a feast. Fresh tropical fruits, still warm pastries, eggs Benedict with island spices, and a carafe of freshly squeezed orange juice. "Is there anything else I can bring you, Miss Natalie?" she asked. "This is perfect," I replied, realizing I couldn't remember the last time someone had asked what I needed rather than telling me what they needed from me. After breakfast, I changed into the new swimsuit I'd splurged on, a deep emerald one-piece that made me feel elegant rather than practical. I grabbed my new straw hat, sunscreen, and the novel I'd been meaning to read for months but never found the time for. The pool area was a paradise of its own. Cushioned loungers surrounded a multi-tiered infinity pool that seemed to spill directly into the ocean. I chose a spot partially shaded by a palm tree and settled in. "Welcome to Paradise Bay Resort," said a staff member, placing a cold towel scented with cucumber and mint beside me. "May I bring you something to drink?" I ordered a piña colada, at 10 a.m., because why not, and opened my book. 3 chapters in, I realized I hadn't checked my phone once. I hadn't wondered if Levi needed money or advice. I hadn't worried about what Mom would say about my choices. I was simply present, existing in this moment, for myself alone. By noon, I'd finished half my book and was contemplating lunch when a shadow fell across my lounger. "You look like you could use some company," said a voice with a British accent. I looked up to see a woman about my age, with sun-kissed skin and a friendly smile. She introduced herself as Eliza, a travel writer from London who was staying at the resort to review it for a luxury travel magazine. "I noticed you're here alone too," she said. "Care to join me for lunch? The seafood restaurant here is supposed to be divine." Normally, I might have declined. Years of putting others first had made me wary of spontaneous connections. But this was the new Natalie, the one who said yes to things that brought her joy. "I'd love to," I replied. Lunch with Eliza turned into an afternoon of conversation by the pool, which turned into sunset cocktails at the beach bar. She was witty, independent, and refreshingly straightforward. "So what brings you to St. Lucia alone?" she asked as we watched the sun sink into the horizon, painting the sky in impossible shades of pink and gold. I hesitated, then decided on honesty. "I wasn't invited to my brother's wedding, so I decided to treat myself instead." Eliza raised her eyebrows. "Not invited to your own brother's wedding? That's rather brutal." "It is what it is," I shrugged, surprised by how little it hurt to say it aloud here, thousands of miles from home. I've spent my whole life being there for him, and when it came to his big day, I didn't make the cut. "Well," Eliza said, raising her glass, Their loss is St. Lucia's gain, to family disappointments and the beautiful escapes they lead us to. We clinked glasses, and I felt something loosen in my chest, a knot of resentment I'd been carrying for weeks, maybe years. The next morning, I woke early for my scheduled spa appointment. The spa was set in a secluded corner of the resort, surrounded by tropical gardens and the sound of birdsong. Inside, water features created a soothing soundtrack as I was led to a private treatment room overlooking the sea. My therapist, a woman named Cecile with strong, knowing hands, began with a full-body exfoliation using local coffee grounds and brown sugar. As she worked, she hummed softly, a melody I didn't recognize but found deeply comforting. "You're carrying a lot of tension," she observed as she moved to the massage portion, her fingers finding knots in my shoulders I didn't even know existed. "It's been a difficult few weeks," I admitted. "The body remembers what the mind tries to forget," she said simply. "But the sea washes everything clean eventually." 3 hours later, I emerged from the spa feeling like a new person. My skin glowing, my muscles relaxed, my mind quieter than it had been in months. I checked my phone out of habit and saw that Eliza had texted, inviting me to join her for a sunset catamaran cruise that evening. Again, I said yes. The cruise was magical. Just 12 guests on a sleek sailboat, with champagne flowing freely and a crew that seemed determined to make the evening perfect. As we sailed along the coastline, the Pitons, twin volcanic peaks that are the island's most famous landmark, glowed golden in the setting sun. Eliza and I sat at the bow, letting the sea spray cool our sun-warmed skin. "I've been thinking about what you told me," she said. "About your brother." I tensed slightly, the familiar defensiveness rising. "No, hear me out," she continued. "I have a theory about people like you, the reliable ones, the ones everyone leans on. You become so good at being strong that people forget you can break too. They take your presence for granted because you've never given them reason to think you won't be there." Her words hit with the force of truth. "So what's the solution? Stop being reliable?" She laughed. "No, the solution is to be reliable to yourself first. Set boundaries. Disappoint people occasionally. Let them miss you." As the boat turned back toward the resort, lights twinkling along the shoreline like earthbound stars, I considered her words. For years, I'd measured my worth by how much I could give to others, especially to Levi. What would it mean to give to myself first? That night I posted a photo of myself on the catamaran, wind in my hair, genuine joy on my face. The caption was simple: "Finding my sea legs and myself. #no regrets." For the first time since I'd arrived, I scrolled through my notifications. Dozens of likes, comments from friends expressing envy or support, and then a notification that made my heart skip. Levi had tried to call. Twice. I put the phone down without returning the call. Tomorrow was another day in paradise, and for once, my brother could wait. The next morning, I woke to a message from the resort concierge, Ms. "Natalie, your private island tour is confirmed for 9 a.m. Your guide, Thomas, will meet you in the lobby." I'd forgotten I'd booked this, a full-day exploration of the island's hidden gems, away from tourist crowds. Thomas turned out to be a local historian in his 60s, with dreadlocks streaked with gray and eyes that crinkled when he smiled. "Today," he announced as he opened the door to a comfortable SUV, "you will see the real St. Lucia." And I did. We drove through tiny fishing villages where children waved as we passed. We hiked to a waterfall hidden in the rainforest where I swam in water so clear I could see every pebble on the bottom. We visited a cocoa plantation where I learned to make chocolate the traditional way, grinding roasted beans on a stone metot. At each stop, Thomas shared not just facts, but stories, legends of the island, his own childhood memories, the complex history of a place shaped by colonialism and resilience. "This island has been claimed by 7 different nations throughout history," he told me as we shared a lunch of grilled fish and fresh vegetables at a roadside stand. "But St. Lucians always know who they are, no matter who plants their flag here." I thought about identity then. how I'd defined myself for so long as Levi's supportive sister, Mom's responsible daughter. Who was I when those roles were stripped away? As the sun began to set, Thomas took me to one last spot, a cliff overlooking a hidden cove where the waves crashed dramatically against volcanic rock. "This is my favorite place," he said quietly. "When life becomes too much, I come here to remember how small we all are, and how beautiful the world is anyway." We stood in silence, watching the light change on the water. In that moment, I felt a profound sense of peace. Not because my family problems were solved, but because I was beginning to understand they didn't define me. That night, I slept more deeply than I had in years, lulled by the sound of waves and the knowledge that tomorrow would bring another day of discovery, of the island, and of myself.